principal sources of the gold supply of the modern world have been first South America, Transylvania in Europe, Siberia in Asia, California in North America, and Australia. Africa has always produced gold from time immemorial. The later development in the Johannesburg district, Transvaal, which has absorbed during the last few years so many millions of English capital, is now, after much difficulty and disappointment, thanks to British pluck and skill, producing splendidly. The yield for 1896 was 2,281,874 ounces, a yield never before equaled by lode mining from one field. In the year 1847, gold was discovered in California at Sutter's Sawmill, Sacramento Valley, where, on the water being cut off, yellow specks and small nuggets were found in the tail race. The enormous rush which followed is a matter of history and the subject of many romances, though the truth has, in this instance, been stranger than fiction. The yield of the precious metal in California since that date up to 1888 amounts to 256 million pounds. Following close on the American discovery came that of Australia, the credit of which has usually been accorded to Hargraves, a returned Californian digger, who washed out payable gold at Lewis Ponds Creek near Bathurst in 1851. But there is now no reason to doubt that gold had previously been discovered in several parts of that great island continent. It may be news to many that the first gold mine worked in Australia was opened about 12 miles from Adelaide City, South Australia, in the year 1848. This mine was called the Victoria. Several of the company's scrip are preserved in the public library, but some 2 years previous to this, a man named Edward Proven had found gold in the same neighborhood. Most governments nowadays encourage in every possible way the discovery of gold fields, and rewards ranging from hundreds to thousands of pounds are given to successful prospectors of new auriferous districts. The reward the New South Wales authorities meted out to a wretched convict who early in the century had dared to find gold was 100 lashes vigorously laid onto his already excoriated back. The man then very naturally admitted that the alleged discovery was a fraud and that the nugget produced was a melted down brass candlestick. One would have imagined that even in those unenlightened days it would not have been difficult to have found a scientist sufficiently well informed to put a little nitric acid on the supposed nugget and so determine whether it was the genuine article without skinning a live man first to ascertain. My belief is that the unfortunate fellow really found gold, but as Mr. Dees Thompson, the then colonial secretary, afterwards told Hargraves in discouraging his reported discovery, "You must remember that as soon as Australia becomes known as a gold-producing country, it is utterly spoiled as a receptacle for convicts." This, then, was the secret of the unwillingness of the authorities to encourage the search for gold, and it is after all due to the fact that the search was ultimately successful beyond all precedent, that Australia has been for so many years relieved of the curse of convictism, and has ceased once and for all to be a depot for the scoundrelism of Britain. Hurrah for the bright red gold! Since the year 1851 to date, the value of the gold raised in the Australasian colonies has realized the enormous amount of nearly 550 million pounds. One cannot help wondering where it all goes. Mulhall gives the existing money of the world at 2,437 million pounds, of which 846 millions of paper, 801 millions of silver, and 790 millions gold. From 1830 to 1880, the world consumed by melting down plate, etc., 4,230 tons of silver more than it mined. From 1800 to 1870, the value of gold was about 15.5 times that of silver. From 1870 to 1880, it was 167 times the value of silver, and now exceeds it over 20 times. In 1700, the world had 301 million pounds of money. In 1800, 568 million pounds, and in 1860, 1,180 million pounds sterling. The gold first worked for in Australia, as in other places, was of course alluvial. by which is usually understood loose gold in nuggets, specks, and dust lining drifts which were once the beds of long extinct streams and rivers, or possibly the moraines of glaciers, as in New Zealand. Further on, the differences will be mentioned between alluvial and reef or lode gold, for that there is a difference in origin in many occurrences is, I think, provable. I hold strongly that true alluvial gold is not always derived from the disintegration of lodes or reefs. For instance, the Welcome Nugget certainly never came from a reef. No such mass of gold or anything approaching it has ever yet been taken from a quartz matrix. It was found at Bakery Hill, Ballarat in 1858, weight 2,195 ounces, and sold for 10,500 pounds. This was above its actual value. The Welcome Stranger, a still larger mass of gold, was found amongst the roots of a tree at Dunolly, Victoria in 1869 by two starved-out fossickers named Beeson and Oates. The weight of this, the largest authenticated nugget ever found, was 2,268.5 ounces, and it was sold for 10,000 pounds, but it was rendered useless as a specimen by the finders, who spent a night burning it to remove the adhering quartz. But the ordinary digger neither hopes nor expects to unearth such treasures as these. He is content to gather together by means of puddling machine, cradle, long tom, or even puddling tub and tin dish, the scales, specks, dust, and occasional small nuggets ordinarily met with in alluvial washes. Having sunk to the wash or drift, the digger, by means of one or more of the appliances mentioned above, proceeds to separate the gold from the clay and gravel in which it's found. Of course, in large alluvial claims where capital is employed, such appliances are superseded by steam puddles, buttles, and other machinery, and sometimes mercury is used to amalgamate the gold when very fine. Hydraulically is the cheapest form of alluvial mining, but can only be profitably carried out where extensive drifts, which can be worked as quarry faces, and unlimited water exist in the same neighborhood. When such conditions obtain, a few grains of gold to the yard or ton will pay handsomely.